I never imagined that a short-term teaching assignment could turn into one of the most frightening weeks of my life. In the spring of 2016, I was 27, fresh out of a string of adjunct positions that never paid more than rent, and I had just accepted a guest lecture offer at Jefferson State Community College in Birmingham, Alabama. Behavioral psychology had always been my passion, my escape from the instability of my 20s. Yet beneath the excitement, I carried a quiet anxiety. I was moving back in with old habits and old friends, hoping to anchor myself in some sense of stability. Kyle Dawson had been my college roommate, my confidant during all-nighters and last-minute research projects. Now he was a hospital technician, working long, stressful shifts at UAB Medical Center. His life had become a series of endless days punctuated by brief nights that rarely allowed him time to breathe. When I arrived, we fell back into our old rhythm, a mixture of familiarity and nostalgia, the kind that feels comfortable but sometimes suffocating. Our ritual was simple yet oddly therapeutic. After his late shifts, we'd drive down to the 24-hour 7-Eleven on Fifth Avenue South, picking up snacks, coffee, or sometimes just wandering the aisles in silence. I pretended it was research, observation of human behavior, consumer habits, or the subtle rhythms of late-night store culture. But in truth, it was our escape from the monotony and tension of our respective lives. It was late Thursday night around 12:45 a.m. when I first noticed something was off. Kyle had come home unusually agitated, tossing his keys onto the counter. "Some patient's family just lost it on me," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. "I need to clear my head." I nodded, and we decided on our usual walk to 7-Eleven. The store felt different the moment we walked in. Fluorescent lights flickered faintly above, and the hum of the refrigerator seemed louder than normal. The clerk, a man in his 30s who always seemed half asleep, gave us a weak smile. We drifted through the aisles, the smell of cheap coffee, frozen dinners, and stale snacks mingling in the air. Kyle picked up an energy drink while I wandered toward the snack section. That's when I noticed them. Two men stood in the frozen food aisle, roughly 20 feet apart. At first, I assumed they were waiting for each other, but there was something unnatural in their stillness. They didn't move. They didn't blink. One was tall and wiry, wearing a gray hoodie, the other shorter, heavier. A baseball cap pulled low. Their eyes locked on each other in a silent contest. Kyle leaned closer and whispered, "You see that?" "What's their deal?" I shrugged, forcing a laugh. "Probably just waiting for a friend." But the air grew heavier, as though the store itself was holding its breath. I felt it in my chest, a tightening, a warning that something was off. The smaller man twitched suddenly like a predator about to strike, and then everything erupted. The first shot cracked the silence. It echoed through the store, bouncing off the tile floor and metal shelves. My heart slammed against my ribs as Kyle grabbed my arm and yanked me behind a stack of laundry baskets in the household aisle. Glass shattered. Cans toppled. The clerk screamed. Chaos consumed every corner. "Stay down!" Kyle hissed, pressing against me. My ears rang, and for a terrifying moment I froze, convinced the gunfire would find me even under the flimsy cover of baskets. The smell of spilled detergent mixed with the faint tang of blood making my stomach lurch. I realized then that our regular late-night escape, our mundane ritual, had turned into a nightmare. Footsteps pounded past our aisle, heavy, erratic, and then the metallic clatter of the door opening as someone fled into the night. Silence followed, thick and suffocating. For several minutes, neither of us breathed. When the sirens finally pierced the night, I felt numb relief. Police arrived in waves, flashlights slicing through the shadows. We were escorted outside, hands shaking, while inside officers examined the store. They found shell casings and streaks of blood, but no bodies, no suspects, just the eerie residue of violence. I tried to convince myself it was random. "Wrong place, wrong time," Kyle muttered, brushing past it. But I couldn't. Something primal in me had shifted. The world felt dangerous in ways I had only read about in papers and journals. The days following the shooting were surreal. I went to my lectures, tried to focus on students, but my mind kept replaying the shots, the way the men moved, the sound of glass breaking. Every time I passed a store, every parking lot, my body tensed. I caught myself checking corners, counting exits, imagining threats in every shadow. Kyle tried to distract me. "You can't live like this," he said one evening as we grabbed dinner. "It's not like you can control everything," but I knew better. That night at 7-Eleven had changed me. The sense of security I once took for granted had vanished. Ordinary spaces, the fluorescent lit aisles, the hum of coolers, the chatter of night clerks had become vessels of uncertainty. Sleep was difficult. I dreamt of the two men, their unblinking eyes, the echo of gunfire. I woke drenched in sweat, the metallic smell of blood lingering in my imagination. Even Kyle's calm presence couldn't ground me. Weeks passed. The 7-Eleven had boarded windows, a physical reminder of that night. I avoided it, walking past, staring at the quiet lot. The police never caught anyone. There was no closure. I found myself hyper-aware in every public space, grocery stores, gas stations, college hallways, all potential stages for chaos. My lectures suffered. My confidence eroded. I was reminded daily of the fragility of safety, the randomness of danger. Kyle noticed the change. "You need a break," he said. "Take a weekend off. Go somewhere safe." I tried. I drove to nearby towns, wandered streets that didn't hold echoes of gunfire, but the anxiety followed. I realized that the threat wasn't just the men with guns. It was the knowledge that life could snap violently, unpredictably anywhere. It took months for the tension to ease, but even now, late-night aisles make me tense. Every ordinary encounter carries the potential for something darker. The lesson became clear. Safety is never guaranteed, and vigilance is a quiet necessity, not paranoia. The 7-Eleven on 5th Avenue South remains, but I haven't stepped inside since that night. I carry the memory as both warning and motivation. Life is fragile. Danger can appear in mundane places, and awareness is a skill as essential as any in behavioral psychology. I tell my students now not just about theory, but about perception, environment, and unpredictability. And sometimes I wonder how many people walk past these aisles, oblivious, unprepared, unaware of how quickly ordinary life can collapse into chaos. Life's fragility is often hidden in the mundane. Vigilance, awareness, and preparedness can protect us. But understanding that danger can arise anywhere, even in ordinary spaces, is the first step toward survival. I never thought a part-time job could make me feel so exposed, so utterly vulnerable. In the summer of 2019, I was 22, balancing my final semester at UT Dallas with 2 part-time jobs, struggling to pay rent and keep my life afloat. One of those jobs was at a small 7-Eleven on Greenville Avenue, a long strip of neon lights, late-night diners, and gas stations stretching through the heart of Dallas. My shift was 4 p.m. to 11 p.m., a schedule that left me exhausted but gave me the flexibility I desperately needed. I liked working evenings in theory. The quiet hours gave me space to think, observe people, and sometimes even study. But the loneliness of the night shift was a different kind of pressure. The endless hum of the refrigerators, the buzzing fluorescent lights, and the occasional flicker of bulbs created an atmosphere that felt simultaneously sterile and claustrophobic. Most nights were harmless, college kids grabbing snacks, truckers fueling up, or a few late-night regulars buying beer and cigarettes. It was predictable, almost comforting. Maria was my co-worker that summer, a 19-year-old who worked weekends. She was cheerful and upbeat, though I could see the same exhaustion behind her eyes that I felt behind mine. Sometimes when it was quiet, we'd swap stories, college woes, funny customers, and minor misadventures in retail. Those moments made the night feel lighter, almost normal. But that night, everything changed. I was restocking the cold drinks, sliding cans into neat rows, when the walkie-talkie crackled in my hand. The sound was sharp, distorted, almost static, and immediately my pulse quickened. At first, I assumed it was Maria or the manager checking in, but the voice was different. Low, deliberate and unsettling. "I'm watching you." I froze mid-motion, a soda can poised halfway on the shelf. My hand shook as I pressed the button. "Who is this?" Wrong channel. Silence. Then after an unnerving pause, "Don't bother locking your car. I'll be waiting." My stomach twisted. I looked up at Maria, who had peeked around the corner with her usual hesitant curiosity. "Was that you messing with me?" she asked, her voice trembling. I shook my head. "No. Did you hear it too?" Her pale nod confirmed my worst suspicion. Whoever this was, they weren't joking. We tried switching channels, checking the other walkie-talkies, and even tapping the emergency button, but the voice returned minutes later. Clearer this time. "Red shirt, you look nervous." I was wearing the standard red polo. My pulse shot up. Maria muttered, "I'm calling the manager," but there was no answer. The store was eerily quiet, as though someone or something had muted the world outside. We decided to finish the shift quickly, but my thoughts raced. The voice knew me, knew my routine. Closing time arrived far too quickly. Maria's ride came to pick her up, leaving me to face the parking lot alone. My car was parked in the far corner, half hidden under a broken street lamp. Every shadow felt alive. My hands tightened around the keys as I walked toward the car, glancing over my shoulder. Then I saw it. A dark sedan, tinted windows idling near the edge of the lot. Its headlights were off, but a faint glow inside revealed someone smoking. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. I rushed to the car, unlocked it, and slid inside, slamming the door shut. Every instinct screamed at me to drive away, but the sedan began to follow. At first I rationalized, maybe coincidence, a car waiting for someone else. But as I navigated through the lot, it matched every turn, lingering behind me like a predator. I dialed 911, voice shaking, explaining the situation. The dispatcher's calm instructions barely registered. "Drive to a well-lit area. Don't go home. Stay on the line." I spotted a gas station across from a 24-hour diner, pulled in under a floodlight, and parked. The sedan slowed, hesitated, then melted into the darkness. When police arrived 15 minutes later, it was gone. No license plate, no occupants. Even after filing a report, the officers were skeptical. "People mess with store radios," one said. But I knew better. This wasn't interference or pranksters. Someone had been inside, observing me, tracing my movements, waiting for the perfect moment to unsettle me. The days afterward were surreal. My sleep fractured into anxiety-laden naps. My dreams filled with the dark sedan, the voice over the walkie-talkie. Every car in a parking lot made me flinch. Every flicker of fluorescent light in a store aisle made my hands tighten around the cart. I couldn't ignore the lessons it was teaching me. Trust was fragile, safety relative, and even the mundane, walking to your car, finishing a shift, could be laced with threat. Maria noticed my unease, attempting reassurance, but her words were hollow against the vivid replay of that night. I started checking the lot before shifts, running through emergency scenarios, visualizing exits, escape routes, and safe havens. What once had been a simple routine job had become a high-stakes exercise in vigilance. Weeks passed, yet the paranoia clung to me. The 7-Eleven, once just a place of work, felt like a stage where unseen forces watched, judged, and tested my reactions. Any stray crackle on the walkie-talkie made me jump. I avoided empty aisles, avoided closing alone, and drove circuits before approaching my apartment. The psychological toll grew. My coursework suffered, my interactions were shorter, more guarded. Even friends commented on my sudden jumpiness. I understood now that trauma doesn't always need a physical wound. It could live in anticipation, in fear, in the very environment that once felt ordinary. Eventually, I quit. I could no longer tolerate the constant tension and the fear of the unseen. But the memory of that night never faded. Every night I walk past a convenience store, I glance at the shadows in the parking lot, wondering if someone is watching, waiting. The lesson I carry now is simple but profound. Safety is never guaranteed, Life can pivot on the smallest, seemingly insignificant moments. Awareness, preparation, and the ability to trust your instincts are vital. And sometimes survival means knowing when to walk away, when to prioritize your peace over routine or obligation. Even in the hum of fluorescent lights and the soft clink of soda cans, I know that danger can exist quietly, unseen, just beyond the glow. And that knowledge shapes everything I do. Ordinary routines can hide extraordinary danger. Awareness and instinct are our first defenses. Sometimes survival means listening to that inner voice, trusting your perception and knowing when to remove yourself from harm's way. I never imagined that the loneliest year of my life would begin with a late-night craving for a bottle of soda. My name is Ethan Marquez, and in 2021 I moved to Los Angeles from Tucson, Arizona. People assume moving to LA is about chasing dreams, chasing Hollywood, chasing some larger-than-life ambition. For me, it wasn't any of that. I came here because I needed distance. Distance from my father, from the arguments that never ended, from a house that felt like a graveyard after my mother passed away. I found a tiny apartment in Glassell Park, tucked above a mechanic's shop that smelled perpetually of gasoline. The unit was barely 400 square feet, with one window that rattled when trucks passed by on Eagle Rock Boulevard. Still, to me, it was freedom. A chance to breathe without someone judging me across the dinner table. I worked at a shipping warehouse during the day. The pay was shit, the hours long, but it covered rent and instant noodles. Nights were the hardest. Silence has a way of growing fangs when you live alone. It bites into you, reminds you of everything you're running from. That's when I discovered the 7-Eleven on Verdugo Road. It wasn't special, just another convenience store with buzzing fluorescent lights, humming refrigerators, and that faint smell of burnt coffee grounds. But it was open 24 hours, and the glow of its neon sign became a kind of lighthouse for me. Every night after work, I'd wander down there, buy a soda or hot dog, and chat with whoever was working the counter. The cashier I saw most often was Maya Castillo, a 20-something student with a messy bun and tired eyes. She had this way of being sarcastic without being cruel, and over time her voice became the most consistent sound in my life. One night, as I placed a microwaved burrito on the counter, she smirked. "Back again? You know these are basically poison, right?" I shrugged. "At least it's affordable poison." She laughed, scanning the barcode. "Fair point. What's your deal anyway? You live close?" "Yeah, above the mechanic's place with the rusted balcony." "Oh, I know it. My friend used to call that building the Coffin Apartments." I winced. "That's comforting." "Hey, you said it, not me." She handed me my change. "Careful walking back. Some weirdos hang out after 2 a.m. I smiled faintly. "I'll keep that in mind." For the first month, those late-night trips were the only thing keeping me grounded. But then slowly the store stopped feeling safe. It started small. A man loitering outside near the dumpsters, hood pulled low, face in shadow. At first I thought he was just homeless, maybe digging for cans. But then I noticed the way he'd stop what he was doing whenever I walked past. His head would turn, following me with a stillness that felt unnatural. Inside, I'd catch glimpses of him too. Standing at the back of the store, near the refrigerators, pretending to browse but never picking anything up. His lips moved sometimes, whispering words I couldn't hear. The first time it happened, Maya leaned across the counter and lowered her voice. "Do you see him too?" My stomach dropped. "So he's not just me?" She shook her head. "He's been hanging around all week. Doesn't buy anything. Just stares. Gives me the creeps." "Did you call the cops?" "They came once. By the time they showed up, he was gone." She chewed her lip. "Thing is, he always comes back." That night, when I left the store, I could feel him behind me. Not close enough to touch, but near enough that I heard the squeak of his shoes on the wet pavement. I hurried home, locked the door, and stayed awake till sunrise, convinced I'd see his shadow under my window. As the weeks passed, the encounters escalated. Sometimes I'd hear footsteps behind me only to turn and find the sidewalk empty. Other times I'd see him across the street, standing perfectly still under a flickering streetlight. Once, as I grabbed a soda from the cooler, I looked up into the glass reflection and saw his face right behind me. I spun around. The aisle was empty. Maya noticed how jumpy I'd become. "You okay, Ethan?" she asked one night as I dropped a Red Bull and a pack of chips on the counter. "Not really," I admitted. I think he's following me." Her expression darkened. "Last night, he stood outside for hours, didn't move, just staring in. I almost called my manager, but what's he gonna do?" "What the hell does he want?" "I don't know," she said quietly. "But sometimes I think he's not really here for the store." "What do you mean?" She met my eyes, voice barely above a whisper. "I think he's here for you." That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying her words in my head. "He's here for you." At 3:17 a.m. I woke to a noise outside my apartment, a scraping sound like metal against glass. My stomach flipped as I realized it was coming from the fire escape. Grabbing the baseball bat I kept by my bed, I crept toward the window. My heart pounded so loud I thought it might give me away. Slowly I peeled back the curtain. He was there, pressed against the glass. His hoodie was pulled tight, but his mouth was visible, moving, whispering words I couldn't hear. His breath fogged the pain. I stumbled back, nearly dropping the bat. By the time I blinked, he was gone. The fire escape rattled as if someone had leapt off it. The next day I told Maya, "You need to tell someone," she said firmly. "Police, landlord, somebody. They'll think I'm paranoid. Hell, I'm starting to think I'm paranoid." "No." Her voice shook. "You're not crazy. He's real, Ethan. Last night after you left, I swear he came inside. Just walked in, stood at the end of the aisle and whispered something. I couldn't understand it, and then..." She shivered. "He smiled at me like he knew it scared me." I swallowed hard. "What did you do?" "I told him to leave." He walked out. "But Ethan, he knew your name." From that point, things spiraled. The man, Marcus, I would later learn his name was, started appearing everywhere. On the bus, in the laundromat, across the street when I left work. Always silent, always watching, and sometimes whispering my brother's name. My brother who had died years earlier. I began unraveling, questioning what was real. Maya stayed by my side, trying to help, but the darkness followed us both. The climax came one stormy night when Marcus trapped me inside the 7-Eleven. The power flickered, the doors jammed, and his whispers filled the aisles. Words I shouldn't have known, memories I had buried. My brother's voice calling out through his. I fought to escape, but the truth clawed at me. Marcus wasn't just a man, he was something else. Something that fed on guilt, on grief, on the cracks in people like me. By the time I broke free into the rain-soaked street, I knew my life would never return to normal. Marcus was still out there, waiting, whispering, and the 7-Eleven's neon sign still glowed, a lighthouse for the lost. Only now I wasn't sure if it was guiding me to safety or pulling me back into the dark. I was 24 when I first realized that Los Angeles could make a person feel lonelier than anywhere else in the world. People outside the city imagine bright lights, endless opportunity, the energy of Hollywood and downtown. But for someone like me, Daniel Cruz, a kid who grew up in Bakersfield and moved here with a half-finished degree and a head full of guilt, Los Angeles was nothing more than cracked sidewalks, overpriced rent, and nights that stretched into black holes of silence. I moved to Highland Park in 2019 after my mother passed. She was the anchor of our family, the only person who believed my dream of studying psychology wasn't a waste of time. After her funeral, I couldn't stay in Bakersfield. The house felt hollow, haunted by her absence. My father had already remarried, and my younger sister Marissa wanted nothing to do with me after I dropped out of Fresno State. So I packed my bags, rented a tiny studio in a building that smelled of mildew, and took a job unloading freight at a warehouse near the 5 freeway. The job drained me, the city drained me, and every night I found myself restless, staring at the cracked ceiling above my mattress on the floor. That's when I started walking to the 7-Eleven on Figueroa Street, It wasn't glamorous, just a convenience store with humming fridges, the acrid smell of burnt coffee, and the harsh glow of fluorescent lights. But at 1 in the morning, it felt like a lifeline. I'd buy cheap snacks, sometimes just loiter by the coffee station watching the night shift regulars. It gave me the illusion of belonging to something bigger than the quiet void of my apartment. The cashier on most nights was Rosa Delgado, a petite woman in her late 20s with sharp cheekbones and a voice that carried even when she whispered. She had the tired sarcasm of someone who'd seen every type of drunk customer stumble in at 3 a.m. and wasn't impressed anymore. One night I walked in, hair still damp from a late shower, hoodie clinging to me in the warm September air. Rosa looked up from behind the counter, scanning the store like she always did before focusing on me. "Back again, huh? Don't tell me you're buying those hot dogs." I grinned. "Why? You gonna stop me?" "Not my problem if you end up in the ER. Just don't puke in here." She slid her phone into her apron. "So what is it tonight? Chips, energy drink, sad burrito?" "Chips," I admitted, "and maybe a Red Bull." "Classic," she muttered, punching numbers into the register. "You remind me of my cousin. Dude practically lived off gas station food until he got kidney stones." I chuckled, handing her a 5. Way to sell me on it. That was the rhythm. Jokes, light conversation, the comfort of someone remembering your face. Rosa's presence gave the store a strange warmth, even with its cold white lights and buzzing coolers. For the first time in months, I felt like I had a routine that didn't suffocate me. But then things changed. It started on a Tuesday in October. The air was heavy with the faint smell of rain, though the sky was clear. I pushed open the glass door to 7-Eleven and immediately felt it. The atmosphere was wrong. The fridges hummed louder than usual, their vibrations prickling my skin. Rosa wasn't at the counter, and in the back of the store, near the freezer section, a man stood completely still. He was tall, maybe 6'2", wearing a faded black hoodie. His hands hung limp at his sides. What caught me wasn't the clothes, though. It was his posture, rigid, as if his joints had locked in place. His head was tilted slightly, his gaze fixed on the sliding freezer door. At first, I thought he was just zoning out. People did that, right? But as I walked toward the chip aisle, I glanced again. He hadn't moved an inch. Not a shift of weight, not a blink. Just stillness. The automatic cooler light flickered. In that brief blackout, I thought I saw his head turn toward me. When the light steadied, he was facing forward again. I swallowed, grabbed a random bag of chips, and walked quickly to the counter. Rosa emerged from the back room with a box of inventory. "Oh, hey, didn't hear you come in." She set the box down, dusted her hands, then noticed the man. Her smile faltered. "Is he with you?" she asked softly. "No," I whispered. She frowned, lowering her voice further. "He's been here almost an hour. Just standing there." My stomach twisted. "Has he bought anything?" "Nothing." She picked up the phone behind the counter, hesitated, then set it back down. Every time I think about calling the cops, he moves a little, like he knows. As if on cue, the man's fingers twitched. I forced a laugh that came out shaky. Maybe he's just high. Rosa didn't laugh. That night when I left the store, I felt him before I saw him. The man stood at the edge of the parking lot, hood shadowing his face, head tilted slightly like before. His body was perfectly still except for his lips. They moved slowly, soundlessly, as if whispering something only the night could hear. I tightened my grip on the plastic bag and walked faster. My reflection in the store's glass door showed him still whispering. The next few nights, he was always there, sometimes inside the store, rooted in the same spot by the fridges. Sometimes outside, leaning against the lamppost with his lips moving silently. Once, when I dared to glance longer, I realized he wasn't whispering nonsense. He was mouthing my name. Daniel. 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 I stopped going to 7-Eleven for a week, but the silence of my apartment swallowed me whole, and on the 8th night I found myself walking back. Rosa's eyes widened when she saw me. You came back. Was I not supposed to? He asked about you, she whispered. My blood froze. What? She leaned closer, eyes darting to the security cameras. 2 nights ago, he came to the counter. First words I ever heard him say. He leaned forward and asked, "Where's Daniel?" I stumbled back a step. You didn't? I didn't say anything. But he smiled like he already knew. The automatic doors slid open with a hiss. Both of us turned. The man walked in. His steps were deliberate, slow. He didn't look at the aisles, didn't acknowledge the other 2 customers grabbing beer. His head turned toward me immediately like a compass snapping north. Rosa muttered under her breath, "Don't move." But I couldn't help it. My chest rose and fell too quickly, my throat dry. He stopped halfway down the aisle. We locked eyes, or rather I locked onto the darkness of his hood. And then, for the first time, I heard his voice. "Daniel." It was low, deliberate. The way he said it made the syllables feel wrong, as though my name didn't belong to me anymore. I grabbed Rosa's arm. "I have to go." She nodded quickly, pushing the counter flap open. Back door. Now we slipped into the stockroom, the smell of cardboard and detergent hitting me. Rosa unlocked the emergency exit. "Run home. Don't look back." "What about you?" "I'll be fine," she said, though her trembling hands betrayed her. "Just go." I ran. The next morning I skipped work and walked 3 miles to the LAPD station on York Boulevard. I told the officer everything, the man, the staring, the whispering, the break-ins I thought I heard at my apartment. He scribbled notes half-heartedly. "Sounds like a trespasser. We'll send a car by, but no car ever came." Instead, that night, the man came again. I woke at 2:44 a.m. to the sound of my fire escape creaking. Heart pounding, I grabbed the baseball bat I kept by the bed. Slowly, I pulled back the curtain. He was pressed against the glass. His lips moved against the pane, fogging it with every breath. I couldn't hear the words, but I knew. My name. Over and over. I swung the bat against the window. The glass rattled, but he didn't flinch. Instead, he smiled. A slow, unnatural curl of his mouth. And then he dropped from the fire escape into the darkness. The next day, Rosa called me on her break. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered. "He came in again. Asked about you again. I told my manager, but he thinks I'm exaggerating. Daniel, I think he's waiting for something." "Waiting for what?" Her silence stretched long enough to terrify me. Finally, she said, "Waiting for you to be alone." The final night came 2 weeks later. I hadn't slept more than an hour at a time. My apartment felt like a trap, every creak of the pipes making me flinch. Around midnight, I decided to walk to 7-Eleven. Maybe Rosa could ground me again, maybe being around people would help. But when I pushed open the glass door, the store was empty. No Rosa, no customers, just humming refrigerators and buzzing lights. And him. He stood at the far end of the store, hood pulled low, head tilted. His lips moved steadily. I whispered, "What do you want from me?" He stopped. For the first time, the lips didn't move. Instead, he raised one hand, slowly, deliberately, and pointed at me. The lights flickered. The hum of the fridges cut out. In the suffocating silence, his voice filled the store. "You know why." The doors behind me locked with a metallic click. I don't remember running, but I remember Rosa's voice screaming my name. I remember glass shattering, aisles collapsing, the smell of blood and detergent mixing. I remember his face pale, too pale, like he hadn't been alive for years. And then, nothing. When I woke, it was morning. The store was boarded up. Police tape stretched across the lot. No sign of Rosa, no sign of him, just silence. I asked around, but neighbors said the 7-Eleven closed overnight. "Gas leak," someone muttered. "Accident." But I know better. Because at night, when I lie awake in my coffin-sized apartment, I hear it, a whisper through the walls, "Daniel, Daniel, Daniel." And sometimes when I pass the boarded windows of that store, I see him, still, waiting. I never thought a place as ordinary as a corner 7-Eleven could dig its claws into my life and leave scars I'll never shake. My name is Ethan Marquez, 26, born and raised in San Diego, but after my mom passed from a sudden stroke, I drifted north to Los Angeles, chasing the illusion of a fresh start. I ended up in Glendale, renting a cramped one-bedroom near the 134 freeway. By day, I worked at a tech repair shop fixing cracked iPhone screens and dealing with customers who thought they knew more than me. By night, I carried the weight of grief and a hollow loneliness that no Netflix binge or six-pack could numb. I've always had trouble sleeping, and in LA, the insomnia got worse. Most nights, I found myself walking down empty streets long after midnight, headphones dangling, hands shoved deep into my hoodie pockets. That's how I stumbled into the 7-Eleven on Colorado Street, the one with the flickering neon sign that never seemed to get fixed. At first, it was just a pit stop, coffee, chips, maybe a microwaved burrito. But then it became my ritual. The sterile brightness, the humming fridges, even the faint smell of cleaning chemicals gave me a strange comfort. Inside, I wasn't just some broken guy spiraling alone in an apartment. I was just another customer. Behind the counter most nights was Maya Torres, a grad student juggling night shifts and loans. She had an easy laugh, sharp humor, and the kind of face that told you she'd seen enough chaos to not scare easily. We talked, small things at first, then bigger. She told me about her thesis on urban psychology. I told her about my mom. Soon it felt less like transactions and more like friendship. One night in September, she slid my receipt across the counter and smirked. "Ethan, you realize you've been here every night this week? You might as well start paying rent," I laughed. "What can I say? This is cheaper than therapy." She rolled her eyes. "Trust me, I know. Half the people who wander in here are basically looking for someone to talk to. This place is like an unofficial confession booth." Her words stuck with me. That 7-Eleven really was a sanctuary for the lonely, the restless, the broken. But sanctuaries can turn into traps. It began subtly. One Thursday around 2 a.m., I noticed a man standing by the freezer section. He was tall, maybe 6'2", wearing a stained gray hoodie with the hood pulled low. At first, I figured he was just another drunk guy sobering up before driving home. But what unsettled me was his stillness. He didn't pick anything up, didn't move, just stood there, head slightly tilted, staring at the glass door of the freezer. I tried to brush it off, grabbed my usual chips and headed to the counter. Maya leaned toward me, her voice dropping. "You see him too, right?" "Yeah. What's his deal?" "He's been there almost an hour. Not shopping, not talking, just staring." I glanced back. The man's hands dangled limply at his sides, fingers twitching now and then. "Maybe he's high," I suggested, though my voice lacked conviction. "Maybe," Maya muttered, but her eyes never left him. That night, when I left the store, the man was outside, standing at the edge of the parking lot, his hood still shadowing his face. His lips moved slowly, silently, like he was whispering to himself. As I walked past, a chill spread through me. Because in the rhythm of those silent words, I thought I saw it. My name. Ethan. 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 Over the next week, he was always there, sometimes inside, rooted by the freezer, sometimes outside, leaning against the lamppost. Once he stood directly under the neon sign, and in its flicker I saw his face. Skin pale, eyes too wide, lips moving without sound. I stopped going for a few days, but the emptiness of my apartment drove me back. When I finally walked in, Maya looked shaken. "You shouldn't have come," she whispered. "What do you mean?" Her eyes darted to the security cameras. "Last night he came to the counter. First time he ever moved. He leaned in and asked me one thing." My stomach knotted. "What?" Her lips trembled. "He asked, 'Where's Ethan?'" The automatic doors hissed open. We both froze. The man walked in. The store went quiet. Even the fridges seemed to hush. He stopped halfway down the aisle, lifting his head just enough for me to see his mouth. "Ethan." My name came out low, deliberate, like it didn't belong to me anymore. Maya shoved me toward the stockroom. "Go." Back door. Now I hesitated. "What about you?" "I'll handle it. Just go." I bolted, heart hammering, sneakers slapping against the linoleum. The stockroom smelled of cardboard and bleach. I shoved open the emergency exit and ran into the night, not daring to look back. The cops didn't help. I went to the Glendale station, told them everything. The man, the whispering, the way he knew my name. They scribbled on a notepad, nodded, and promised to check it out. Nothing happened. That night I woke to the creak of my fire escape. Slowly I pulled back the curtain. He was there, pressed against the glass. His lips moved, fogging the window with each breath. My name again and again, though I couldn't hear it. I slammed the glass with a baseball bat. He didn't flinch. He just smiled, a slow, unnatural curl of lips. Then he dropped back into the darkness below. Days blurred. Sleep vanished. Maya called me once, her voice thin with fear. "He won't stop asking about you," she said. I think he's waiting." "Waiting for what?" I whispered. Her silence told me everything. The last time I went to 7-Eleven, it was raining hard. I pushed open the door. No customers, no Maya, just humming lights and humming fridges and him. Standing by the far wall, hood down. His skin was chalk white, his eyes bottomless pits. His lips didn't move this time. Instead, he raised one hand, slow, deliberate, and pointed straight at me. The lights cut out. The fridges fell silent. In the dark, his voice filled the store. "You know why." The doors locked behind me with a metallic snap. I don't remember the details of what happened next. Just flashes. Glass shattering, shelves crashing, Maya's scream piercing the dark. His face inches from mine, his breath cold and sour. And then silence. When I woke, it was morning. Police tape crisscrossed the 7-Eleven. The neon sign was gone. A neighbor told me the place had shut down overnight. "Gas leak," they said. But I know the truth, because sometimes in the dead hours when the streets are quiet and I'm lying in bed staring at the ceiling, I hear it, a whisper through the walls, "Ethan, Ethan, Ethan." And when I walk past that boarded-up 7-Eleven, I see him, waiting. I never thought moving to Los Angeles would feel like drowning in a city of millions. My name is Adrian Vega. I'm 25, and I grew up in Fresno. My childhood wasn't bad, but it wasn't easy either. My father left when I was 10, and my mom raised me and my little brother Diego by herself while working 2 jobs. When she passed away from cancer in 2018, I was in my junior year of college. I dropped out, not because I wanted to, but because grief has a way of hollowing you out until nothing makes sense anymore. By 2021, I had drifted south to Los Angeles. I rented a small studio apartment in Echo Park, barely enough space for a mattress, a desk, and my mother's old coffee mug that I couldn't bring myself to throw away. I found work at a shipping warehouse, the kind of job where the hours drag and your body aches, but the paycheck barely covers rent. Nights were the worst. My mind wouldn't shut off, and my chest felt like it carried an invisible weight. I'd lie in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying arguments I had with my mom before she died, wondering if she left this world thinking I was a disappointment. That's when I started walking at night. The city looks different after midnight, quieter, emptier, but lonelier too. My usual path took me past the 7-Eleven on Sunset Boulevard. At first, it was just a convenience stop. Coffee, maybe a cheap sandwich, sometimes just browsing to avoid heading back to the silence of my apartment. Inside, the world felt sterile but safe. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, refrigerators hummed, and the smell of burnt coffee lingered in the air. The monotony was comforting. That's where I met Clara Mendoza, the night shift cashier. She was 27, studying social work by day, working at 7-Eleven by night. Clara was sharp-witted, the type to notice everything but joke about it before you realized she was serious. She became my anchor in that store. One night, as she rang up my coffee, she smirked. "Adrian, you ever gonna try the pizza? You can't just keep living off chips and caffeine." I chuckled. Pretty sure eating that pizza is worse than not eating at all. Fair. But hey, at least it would spice up your routine. You're starting to look like one of those ghosts who only haunt gas stations. Her teasing always pulled a smile out of me. That 7-Eleven with its humming machines and Clara's tired jokes became the only place where I felt like I wasn't disappearing. But then, the nights changed. It began with a man. The first time I saw him was a Wednesday, 2:30 in the morning. He stood in front of the freezer section, tall and gaunt, wearing a black hoodie that hung loosely off his frame. His hands were at his sides, motionless, his head tilted slightly toward the glass door. I thought he was zoning out, maybe high, maybe drunk. But as I walked past, I noticed his lips moving silently. Clara leaned close to me at the counter. Her voice was barely a whisper. "You see him, right?" I nodded. "Yeah. What's his deal?" Her eyes flicked nervously toward the man. "He's been there for almost an hour. Doesn't buy anything. Just stares." I turned back. His lips were still moving, but no sound came out. That night when I left the store, he was standing across the street, hood still shadowing his face. His lips moved again, but this time I swore I knew what he was mouthing. My name. Adrian. 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 Over the next week, it became a pattern. Sometimes he was inside the store, frozen in place by the freezers. Sometimes outside, standing under the busted streetlight, mouthing words at me. His presence became so constant that even Clara couldn't hide her unease. One night, she whispered while scanning my coffee, "Adrian, I think he's watching you." It's always when you're here I tried to laugh it off, but my voice cracked. "Maybe I've just got a fan club." "Not funny," she said sharply. "Last night after you left, he came up to the counter, first time he ever moved. You know what he asked me?" I swallowed hard. "What?" Her eyes met mine, wide with fear. He asked, "Where's Adrian?" The automatic doors slid open then. He walked in. The air in the store shifted. Even the refrigerators seemed to hum softer. His head lifted just enough for me to see pale skin, sunken cheeks, eyes that didn't blink. He looked at me immediately as if he'd been waiting. And then he spoke. "Adrian." Just my name. But the way he said it felt wrong, like it didn't belong to me anymore. Clara's hand shot out, grabbing my wrist. "Go!" "Now." Back door, I hesitated. "What about you?" "I'll be fine. Just go." I bolted through the stockroom, heart slamming against my ribs. The emergency exit groaned as I shoved it open and sprinted into the night. The next morning, I went to the LAPD station on Sunset and poured everything out to a tired-looking officer. He scribbled on a clipboard, nodded, and said, "We'll send someone by." No one came. Instead, that night, he did. At 3:12 a.m., the sound of metal groaning pulled me from half-sleep, my fire escape. I crept to the window, bat in hand, and pulled the curtain aside. He was there, pressed against the glass. His lips moved slowly, fogging the pain with each exhale. Though I couldn't hear him, I knew what he was saying. My name. Over and over. I slammed the bat against the window. The glass shuddered. He didn't move. Instead, his mouth curled into a slow, unnatural smile. Then he dropped back into the darkness below. Days blurred. Sleep vanished. Clara called me on her break one night, her voice trembling. "He won't stop asking about you," she said. "It's like he knows when you're here." "Adrian, I think he's waiting." "Waiting for what?" I whispered. She went silent. Then, in a voice so low I could barely hear, "For you to be alone." The last time I went to 7-Eleven, it was raining. The neon sign buzzed, half burnt out. I stepped inside. No customers, no Clara. Just the hum of machines and him. He stood at the far end of the store, hood down now. His face was pale, his eyes bottomless, his lips still. For the first time, he wasn't whispering. Instead, he raised one hand and pointed at me. The lights flickered. The refrigerators cut out. In the heavy silence, his voice filled the store. You know why. The doors behind me locked with a snap. What happened after is broken in my memory. Shelves toppling, glass shattering, Clara screaming my name. His face inches from mine, his breath icy and foul. Then nothing. When I woke, it was daylight. The 7-Eleven was boarded up, yellow police tape wrapped across the lot. A neighbor muttered about a gas leak. But I know better. Because at night in my apartment, when I lie awake staring at the ceiling, I hear it. A whisper through the walls, Adrian, Adrian, Adrian. And sometimes when I walk past the boarded storefront, I see him, waiting. I never planned on ending up in San Diego. At 24, I had burned through too many jobs and too many friendships in Fresno. After my father's stroke and the medical bills that followed, I left college to keep us afloat, only to watch everything slip through my fingers anyway. My father passed in early 2022, and my older sister moved north with her fiancé, leaving me restless and alone. I thought a fresh start by the coast might help. San Diego felt bigger, brighter, forgiving in a way Fresno never was. I found a one-bedroom apartment in City Heights, a noisy, crowded neighborhood where car alarms went off almost nightly and the walls were thin enough to hear your neighbor sneeze. It wasn't paradise, but it was mine. By day, I worked deliveries for an app-based courier service, pedaling through endless traffic, dropping off bags of food I could rarely afford for myself. By night, I wandered. The silence of the apartment pressed in too hard. I'd find excuses to step outside, walks to clear my head, coffee runs, and most often trips to the 7-Eleven on University Avenue a few blocks away. That 7-Eleven became more than a pit stop. It became a ritual. Bright fluorescent aisles, the hum of refrigerators, the burnt coffee smell, it was bland, predictable, but it felt safe. And the cashier, Maya Lopez, made it feel less lonely. Maya was 26, juggling night classes in psychology and this graveyard shift. She had this dry humor that could slice through exhaustion. The first week I moved in, she caught me buying only instant noodles and a cheap beer. You keep eating like that, you'll be a ghost by 30, she teased, scanning the items. I shrugged. Ghosts don't have to pay rent. She grinned, tired eyes lighting up. Touché. From then on, we always talked. A little banter, a little warmth, nothing heavy. For someone drifting through life like me, that small connection mattered more than I admitted. But then came the night that broke everything. It was a Thursday, close to 1 a.m. Maya was restocking the cigarette shelf behind the counter when I walked in. The store was almost empty except for a man near the freezer aisle. He wasn't shopping. He wasn't moving. He just stood there, staring at the glass doors of the freezer like they held something only he could see. I frowned and whispered to Maya, "That guy been here long?" She glanced over her shoulder and stiffened. "Yeah." Since before midnight, I laughed nervously. Maybe he lost in thought. 2 hours of thought? Her tone was flat, uneasy. And he keep whispering. Watch him. His lips I turned. She was right. His lips were moving, soundless, over and over. His skin was pale, stretched thin over sharp cheekbones. He wore a gray hoodie, hood low over his forehead. I tried to shake it off, but my chest tightened. Something about the stillness, the whispering. It didn't feel right. When I paid for my coffee, Maya leaned in close. He asked about you. My stomach dropped. What? Earlier. Said your name. That's... I swallowed, throat dry. That's impossible. He doesn't know me. Maya's eyes darted back to the freezer aisle. Then how did he know your name? That night when I left, he was across the street under a busted lamppost. His lips moved again silently. Ethan. 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 I didn't sleep. For the next week, it escalated. Every time I went to 7-Eleven, he was there. Always in the same spot, always whispering. Sometimes inside, sometimes across the street, always waiting. Maya tried to act unfazed, but I could see the tension in her jaw, the way her hands trembled when he got too close. One night she hissed, "Ethan, I don't think this is random. He's here for you." "That doesn't make sense," I argued, though my voice cracked. "I've never seen him before." "I don't know him." She leaned closer, whisper sharp. "He asked me what time you usually come in. He's keeping track of you." My stomach churned. "What did you say?" "Nothing. I told him to buy something or leave." He just stared at me, then smiled. Saturday night I tried avoiding the store, but the gnawing restlessness pushed me out around 2 a.m. I told myself I'd just grab a soda and leave fast. When I arrived, the aisles were empty. No Maya behind the counter, just him. He stood at the register, head tilted, hoodie off now. His eyes were dark pits, skin paper white. His lips weren't moving this time. He just stared at me. I froze by the door. My hand shook as I reached for my phone, but his voice stopped me cold. "Ethan." He spoke it aloud this time. Deep, ragged, like the word itself was rotting inside him. "Ethan, you know why the automatic doors hissed shut behind me, locking? The hum of the refrigerators died. The lights flickered once, twice, then buzzed out, plunging the store into shadow." I stumbled back, heart hammering. "What do you want from me?" My voice cracked.